All right, so I'm going to show you how to design your first object for the laser cutter. And now what we're designing today is a object that is 50 millimeters by 50 millimeters, right? Now I don't mind if it is shaped like a square, if it is shaped like a circle, if you get really adventurous and decide to make it look like an actual object, whether that's sort of a tree or a flower or a bottle of glue. I'm just naming things that are on my desk. Right, I don't mind, but I am going to show you sort of step by step how to design something this size for the laser. And there's going to be three sort of levels of complexity. There's going to be this one, which we're going to start with. That's nice and simple. There's going to be this sort of shape, which sort of ups the complexity just a little bit. And there's going to be this shape here, which has quite an intense sort of pattern inside it and a few different sort of aspects to it. It's got the heart pattern, then it's got a bigger heart here, then it's got a letter inside that heart. So let me show you how we're going to do that. So I'm going to move these all off to the side, just so they're not in my way. Now, when you're designing for the laser, you might want to swap your view. So there's two different views. Right now I'm in perspective view. So everything is sort of disappearing into a vanishing point, and it looks really 3D. All right. There's another view, if we come over here to our left-hand side, called orthographic. And that's like a flat view. It's like a two-dimensional view of a three-dimensional object. It's probably the best way that I can explain it. So I click on that, and everything gets much flatter, right? That makes designing for the laser way, way easier. And I also click on top so that I'm looking straight down at stuff. All right, so task number one. We're going to start with a box. So that's a cube shape, right? Now, when you're designing for the laser cuts flat things out. Right, that's how it works. And so what we need to do with our designs is we need to make them similarly flat. Now, you are using material that is 3 millimeters thick. So we're going to change the size or the thickness to 3 millimeters. And then I'm going to make this 50 mil by 50 mil because that's the size that we're working with. All right, cool. So if I grabbed this and I, sent it to the laser as a design, the laser would be able to cut out a square, which would be great if you wanted a square, but it's not particularly fascinating, I don't think. So let's add a couple of different elements to the square. So the first thing I'm going to add is I'm going to add a letter, right? Because I'm thinking maybe this is some sort of keyringy type thing, or maybe it's a label that I stick on like a tub so I know that all this equipment is mine. Whatever. Let's just choose a random letter. Eeny, meeny, miny, K. K seems like a good one. So I have got a K. I'm going to make that K a little bit bigger, and I want the K to still look like a K. I don't want it to look like this. Right, that would be bad. Let's go undo. Right, so to make the K stay looking like a K, even though I want to stretch it, I'm going to press Shift on my computer, grab that corner, and move that out like that. Right, then I turn that into a hole, pop it into wherever I want it on my design. I'm going to put it in this corner. And now I select the K, I hold down Shift, I select the box, so both of those are selected, and then I group those together, right? And that cuts the K out. So now, if I was sending this to the laser, I could cut a square out, and I could engrave, if I wanted, a K into the surface, right? But there'd still be all this space down here that has nothing in it. So I'm going to add some, other sort of bits to this design. What am I going to do? Well, I've talked a lot about trees. So I guess let's put a tree in there. All right. So if I'm making a tree, I'm just going to make a simple sort of cartoony tree. I'm going to grab a cylinder and I'm going to change its size. Right. And that's going to be like the leaves of my tree. So what I'm going to do, first up, I'm just going to grab the circle and I'm going to go up here to duplicate. So now I've got another cylinder and I'm going to put it just over here like this. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing. So another one of these cylinders. And I'm going to pop it over here like this. So that's kind of like the foliage or the top of my tree. My tree also needs a trunk, and for that I'm going to use just another box. And I'm going to change the shape of this box so that it is a bit more like a trunk. And I'm going to put that into my tree, and I might shrink it down just a little bit. Cool. There's the trunk of my tree. And then, I don't know, trees kind of flare out at the bottom, right? They're not the same thickness the whole way through. So I'm going to grab this roof, and then I'm going to rotate it by clicking on this little arrow. and flip it 90 degrees. And I'm just going to, again, I got to change my view so that I can move things around like I want to. So I'm just going to click on top, and I'm going to put the sort of triangle or the roof into my tree and change its size. Until I get it looking just right. All right, so that looks tree-like. Now, I just want to go through and just make a few changes, because as you can see, if I look at the tree from the side, it looks a bit janky. So to fix that, let's move the roof so that it is, on the same level as everything else. And then let's just grab the trunk and sort of the roots and move them to the same level. So, right, that's all the shape now. So now we can select those all, group them together, turn them into a whole, and then we do exactly what we did with our letter. We put that here. Now we've already selected this, so we just hold down Shift, click on our tile, and then group these together. So now that is going to cut a square, engrave a K into it, and engrave this tree into it. Now you could add as much detail as you want to it. You could put as many things in as you wanted engraved. You could even, if you can figure out how to do it, chop the corners off this square so that it has soft corners. You could also put another hole in the corner if you wanted to make it, something that you sort of hang off your keys. And I have, made that look really interesting. So let's just, goodness me, I'm just going to delete that and try again. So where's my bin? There's the bin. So let's try that one more time. Let's make that 5 and that 5. Zoom right in. Right, drop that in that corner. Group it with the rest of my thing. And now, I could also tell it that I wanted to cut out that circle. So this could be some sort of key taggy sort of thing. All right. So once you're happy with your design, you need to make sure it's all grouped together. And this is. Basically, you'll know it's all grouped together because you can click it anywhere and it will select everything that's part of the design. All right, so this is all grouped together. So I'm going to select it so it's highlighted. And then I'm going to click Export. And that is going to open this dialog box. So we can see that we want to download it, and we're going to download the selected shape. So that's what we want. We clicked on this shape, that's the shape we want. Now we're going to ignore all of these because these are for 3D printing. And we're going to look at this. So this is for laser cutting. All right, so we're going to click on that, and that's going to save it as this kind of file here, which is called a .svg. That stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. So click on that. And then you're going to give it an intelligent name. So by an intelligent name, I mean a name that lets me know who it came from and what it is. So if I were me, I would call this Mr. G. I would say that it is a 50 by 50 tile, right? And I might give me a little bit more information about it. I might say that it is also key tag, right? And then you should tell me, what am I cutting this out of? So this is being cut out of 3mm thick material. So 3mm, and that could be plywood or it could be acrylic, and you get to choose later on. But for the first task, just put in 3mm, and I'll just cut it out of whatever's lying about. Click save, and that's what you upload to the learning task so that I can put it through the laser. Right, so that's complexity level 1. Complexity level 2 is basically, using different shapes and using more shapes to come up with a more intricate sort of design. So I'm not going to do this exact one again. What I might do is I might just do a better tree. You know what? I'm going to do a better tree. So let's grab a cylinder and we'll make it 50 by 50. And again, we need to make that 3mm thick. Right, so there is our actual object. Now let's make a better tree. So if I was going to make a better tree, right, I would need more detail, I think, in, sort of my tree-ness. So I might grab a cylinder, a box, and a roof. Because I'm still going to use these shapes. I'm just going to probably use more of them. and use them in a slightly more complicated way. So, whoop. I'm trying to change the angle here, and I'm just going to type in 90 because I want it to turn exactly 90 degrees. I don't want it to turn sort of vaguely 90 degrees. And I'm also going to be a little bit specific about where I want that positioned. So I want it over there. All right, so making a tree that is a better tree. So I'll make a trunk again. And I'll make that 4 mil. And I'm going to make my tree... I'm going to make all the aspects of my tree are going to be 5 millimeters tall for the moment. So I'm just going to change everything to being 5 millimeters. So let's pop that in there like that. And I'll do the same thing down the bottom. So I just made a copy of this roof shape. I'm going to turn it exactly 180 degrees so that I can make the bottom of the tree smaller than the top of the tree. All right, and I'm going to combine these together. And I made a mistake there, because when I shrank this, it also shrank that shape. All right, fix that, group them together. All right, off we go. Now what I want is I would like to actually make this have, branches. So I'm going to grab another one of these. These roofs. I'm going to make it 5 mil tall, like everything else. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it inside there like that, but I'm going to make it a hole, combine it with my original, and group those together. All right, so now my tree has sort of a Y or a split branch or something like that. It's actually looking less like a tree and more like a glass, but we'll see if it ends up looking more like a tree. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Right, I'll grab another box because I want a middle branch and I don't have one. So I'm just changing the shape of my box so that it's going to give me a branch that I'm after. Something like that. Cool. I can take that. I can combine it with this. Group them all together. All right, and now I'm going to stick in some foliage. So I will change the shape of my little cylinder. And what I think I'll do is I will just start grabbing cylinders and poking them onto parts of my tree, and I'll stop when I'm satisfied. So there's my first bit. Here's my second bit. And I'm just going to keep making duplicates. And putting them different places. Now, it's a pretty weird looking tree, right? So now that I've got all my shapes in there, I'm going to try and make it look a little bit less weird. And for me, for a tree, because a tree is kind of like an actual organic shape, I'm going to try and change the shape of some of these circles, which are supposed to be my leaves, and see if I can come up with a tree that looks a bit more tree-like. Oh yeah, kind of looking a little bit more tree-like. And do I want to put in anything else? Does this add to my tree? Does it improve my tree slightly if I put in some different shapes? Maybe. I'm actually pretty happy with that. I'm going to put those there like that. Okay, so now that I've got that, I'm going to group it all together. Ha! That actually kind of looks like a tree. Now, I want to make it a little bit smaller. I still want to make sure that it's tall enough to cut through this, which it is, because right, it's at the moment it is 4.05 mil, so it's still bigger or thicker than the thing I'm trying to, use it to cut out. So that's good. Make it a hole, put it in the thing. You can hold down Shift, select both of them, and then to get it smack bang in the middle, you might want to use this align tool up here. So that's this one here. Boom, boom, and that just lets you click on one of these little dots. And it'll move it. If you want to line it with the top, that's the top. That's the middle. That's the middle. That's what I want. So there is them both selected and grouped together. And that is sort of my tree shape. Now, yes, if I cut it out, these two bits would be floating around looking weird. But all I have to do is tell the laser, don't cut this bit out. This is just an engraved job. So you could put as much detail in there as you like. You know, you could put text in there. You could put all sorts of things. Blah, blah, blah. Let's get rid of that. So that's the second sort of level of complexity. It's just to come up with something that's, you know, a bit more intricate in terms of the actual design that's in there. And you can put in multiple sort of shapes and things like that. The last task is to come up with something that is really sort of intricate, right? So like a repeating pattern, because they look really quite good being burnt into, you know, things with the laser. So to do that, you are going to want to grab whatever shape you want to etch something into. So I'm going to use a square again. So we do the exact same thing. 3, 50, 50. Right, there's our square. And then we're going to need to grab a ruler. And then the last thing we want to do is we want to grab a shape that we're going to make our pattern out of. And this time, I've done hexagons, I've done hearts. This time I might use a star. Let's grab a star, poke a star in there. All right, so we've got a star. What we're going to do is we are going to hold down shift and we're going to shrink that down till it's really actually quite small. So how small? Sort of like this small, between sort of 3 and 4 millimeters. That's how small we want this star. And then we're going to click on our star and we're going to use our ruler to move that star right into the corner. So these measurements here are our ruler measurements. And with those, we can actually reposition stuff. So if I put that down to 0, it's going to move the star to the 0 point. If I move this to 0, it's going to move it to the 0 point over there. Right? So here's our star. Now I want to pattern the stars. So I'm going to click duplicate. And then I can drag this star out. And I can, you know, move it around and I could drag it, put a star down, make another duplicate, drag a star out. But if I want, you know, 100 stars, that's going to get old really, really quickly. That's not a thing that I want to do. That doesn't seem like fun. So there's a much faster way of doing that. So I'm going to click my star and I'm going to hit duplicate. And then I'm going to use my ruler to move the star exactly as far as I would like. I'm going to start with 3 millimeters and see what it looks like. Right, turns out the 3 millimeters looks really good. So now that I've got that star moved, I'm going to select both stars, group them together, and then I'm going to duplicate that. So now I've got 2 stars in a group. So I'm copying 2 stars. Right, now let me go undo so they go back to where they were. So I moved my first star 3 mil. So my next ones, I'm going to move them twice as far because there's twice as many stars. So I move them 6 mil, and then they look really good. Everything's the same distance from one another. I'm going to select them all again, group them, duplicate them, and this time I'm going to move them 12 mil because that's twice as far as I moved them last time. Last time I moved them 6 mil, but this time there are twice as many stars, so I need to move them twice as far. So there is 4 stars. Right. And from here, we just keep doing the same thing. So we select things, we group them together, and then we duplicate. And then we move them twice as far. Right. So there are my stars. And I think I actually have enough going in this sort of this left to right direction. So I'm happy with that. So let's just group those together. Now I'm going to start copying the stars and moving them in the up direction. And to do that, I am just going to go duplicate. And now I'm going to move them in the up direction. And just checking that I've moved them far enough. So that doesn't look quite far enough to me at the moment, right? Because these two are touching. So I might do another thing. I might move them not only up, but I might move them a little bit across. So I'm going to move them 1.5 mil across. And that I find to be, you know, quite aesthetically pleasing. I'm pretty happy with that, right? And so from here, I just grab those, group them together, duplicate them, and now I'm just doing the same thing. Right. So grab them again, duplicate them, grab them again, duplicate them. Oh, maybe I didn't duplicate them. All right, and there are my stars. So now that I've got enough stars, I'm going to group them all together. And I'm going to just look at them from the side. Now they are way shorter than the thing that I want to cut out, than my tile. So I need to change that. So I just come over here, I find the height measurement, and I change that. I'm going to change it to 5, just so they're nice and tall. And then I'm going to turn them into a hole. And then I need them to fit inside this square. So what I might do is I'm just going to hold down Shift, and I'm just going to resize them a little bit, make them a little bit smaller. And then I will select them, drag them onto my tile. I'm going to use that fancy align tool again, just to get everything perfectly in the middle. And then I'm going to select everything and group it all together. All right, so that is done. Last thing, so I would like some more detail in there. I would like some sort of design in the middle. So I need to put something in there to sort of fill this back out. And because I'm using a star, I'm not going to use a star again. I don't know, I just don't feel like using a star again. I'm going to do something different. Eeny, meeny, miny. Let's just put a cylinder in the middle. So let's chuck a cylinder in there. Now, because you're joining the cylinder on, you're not using it to cut something out, you do actually need to make that the same height. So 3 mil. Cylinder. Let's use the align tool again. And group them together. Cool. And then the last thing I might do is I might put some text in the middle there. So there's some text. I'm going to change that so it doesn't say text. Let's change it to cool. So there's the word you. I'm going to make it a bunch smaller. And let's just make sure that it's tall. Now we're going to use this one to do cutting, so it can actually be a little bit too tall. So that one there. So you. Didn't mean to do that. Pop that in there. Now I'm going to go duplicate, because I can also duplicate letters. And if I do that, then my letters stay the same size. So I'm going to go U-R-A. I think you can see where I'm going with this, right? Right, and let's just try and get that in a good spot. Just moving everything around. If I zoom in a little bit further, then I can sort of move with things with a little bit more precision. Let's see if we can get any even spacing in here. So because I'm kind of like fiddling around with stuff and trying to get things really, really sort of evenly spaced and perfect, if I move this, right, it tells me that it's moved it 1 millimeter. I'm actually going to ask it, instead of moving it 1 millimeter, hey, could you move it 0.5 millimeter for me? So if I put in a 0.5 and then hit enter, right, then that's going to put that in. And I'm pretty happy with that. So now that I've got that done, group that all together. Give Tinkercad some time to think about it. There we go. All right. And that is sort of, in terms of making a 50 by 50 tile, that's a pretty decent level of complexity, right? You've got this incredibly intricate pattern there. You've got another circular element in here, and then you've got this text. So this guy is done. Click export, .svg, save the file, upload it, and off you go.